Hey everyone, it's Dr. Naomi Wolf, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be speaking today to three of my heroes, three people who have shown unbelievable leadership, creativity, and tenacity in bringing the bad guys to account and being model healers and public servants. So I'm going to quickly introduce, if I may, Dr. Henry Ealy. Welcome, Dr. Ealy.
How you doing, Naomi?
Really great. And I'll just quickly go through everyone and then I'll give a little more background. We have State Senator Kim Thatcher. Welcome, Senator Thatcher.
Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you. And we also have State Senator Dennis Linthicum. Hello, State Senator Linthicum.
Thank you so much, Naomi. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have all three of you. You're all so distinguished. I just want to share with the audience some highlights from your bios. Senator Dennis Linthicum has had many lives. He's a businessman, a rancher, an irrigator, and a former Klamath County commissioner who's been steeped in information technology for most of his career. We also have Dr. Henry Ealy, who also has quite an amazing bio. He's currently executive community director of the Energetic Health Institute. He was executive community director. He was with Genesis Health Systems for 22 years and is a doctor of naturopathic medicine, among many other credentials. And Senator Kim Thatcher has been a heroine of mine for a long time. We've spoken before. I've had the honor of speaking to her before. Her bio has too many committees to even name, but she's a businesswoman as well. She founded and owns KT Contracting, Highway Specialties, owner and founder, Oregon Contractors Association. She can fly a small aircraft, and she is also a volunteer with a high school mentors program, church volunteer, literacy volunteer. So amazing people joining us, and they've done an amazing thing. By the way, just a side note before I launch in, Senator Thatcher is the reason I got deplatformed from Twitter and smeared globally. I was literally uploading a press release from her office about an important bill, like literally a bill from a duly elected state senator, and Twitter kind of freaked out and froze, and I was deplatformed in a spectacular way. So I'm honored to have been the medium for her voice, no matter what it costs short term, and thrilled today. And I'm just going to launch in and give you the headline. They've done something unbelievable in terms of bringing the bad guys to justice. So having said that, I'll start with Dr. Ealy. What did you do? What's the latest?
Well, I got to tell you, the privilege of working with Senator Linthicum and Senator Thatcher has just been an incredible experience, And what we did together was, and there's a lot of people on the team supporting us as well. What we did was we filed the first grand jury petition to allege significant and injurious, harmful manipulations to data fraud and Medicare, Medicaid insurance fraud.
Oh, wow. That's
in the country
since I was last following your collective work. Wow.
Right.
Go ahead. Don't let me interrupt, please.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've connected some dots here, and I think that's the important point. We knew early on in October of 2020, when we had published our first paper, that there was massive data fraud going on, but to what end, we didn't really understand. It wasn't until we started bringing in the Health and Human Services Department that we understood, they committed all this data fraud so that they could erect a structure that exploits Medicare, Medicaid insurance fraud.
Wow.
Across the country. And that's the basic substance of our allegations, and why we've filed in the Ninth Circuit Court for a federal judge to impanel a special grand jury to investigate these allegations.
Wow. Okay, I'm letting that kind of sink in, because you've just answered a huge why question. I mean, various people, you all in way out ahead in leadership, pioneering this documentation, have been kind of grasping different parts of the elephant, right? And the great question was why? Why would there be fraud? Why would there be data manipulation? What's the point of it? And you can conjecture, and I've conjectured, does it serve big tech? Does it serve pharma? But my head is exploding because it absolutely would serve Medicare and Medicaid fraud, right? I mean, tease that out a little more before we drill in, please.
Well, first of all, I got to give credit to Senator Thatcher and Senator Linthicum on this, because they were the ones that kind of put that final little piece together. I've been railing on the data fraud because I'm a nerd and that's what I do, but they were like, well, to what end, and that became the question. And some folks on our team started to explore that. And that's where we saw that one of the findings from our financial exploration was very simple. We typically spend a maximum of $25 billion a year on the flu.
Right.
But over the previous 2 years in total, we've spent $3.5 trillion on COVID, even though the outcomes aren't demonstratively different.
Wow.
And so that's a huge difference. So we said, well, we have to start talking about the money on this, because that's where the crimes have been committed. It's not necessarily just in manipulation of data. Those are civil offenses. Crimes come in when you lie to steal from the American people. And that's what we feel, that's what we're alleging has happened here.
Whoa. So that is a huge kind of ramping up of your case. The last time I checked in about your grand jury petition filing was about 5 months ago. And it was mind-blowing enough that you all proved that to my satisfaction, that the CDC had mishandled data with the effect of inflating COVID harms and deaths. But it sounds like you have provided, your colleagues have together provided an incredible missing piece, an answer to the why. So let me turn to Senator Thatcher. Tell me what led you and Senator Linthicum to think, oh, maybe there's Medicare, Medicaid fraud here. What was your knowledge base that led to that kind of light bulb going off?
I think more credit goes to Senator Linthicum on this. However, I can say that this team has worked together very, I would just say synergistically, and somebody bringing something up and then somebody grab that thread and run with it. And that's kind of what has happened over the several months that we've been working on this. And I pinch myself every day thinking, hey, this is just great, a great team and a great moment. And I'm glad to be involved.
Well, don't worry, because I will give credit to everybody. You're all so nice that you're all like handing off the credit. You're all heroes. You all get to be inscribed in history. What led you to think there could be Medicare fraud here?
Well, first of all, we know that there's an inflation of numbers. We talked about that in our first go at the grand jury petition. And so based on that, and knowing that hospitals were getting paid to go along with this, it just seemed like there's something to this, and it's just wrong that they're being encouraged and financially incentivized to go along with something that they had to have known was inaccurate. They were diagnosing people with COVID and having died of COVID, even if they had died of a long time heart condition or other well-known comorbidity. That was happening to a lot of people writing into me, talking about their family members.
Wow.
I had a family, it's just so much. My family member went into the hospital and they insisted on putting him on the ventilator and remdesivir. He managed to survive. He couldn't walk by the time he got out of there, but they would not allow him to seek any other alternative treatment at all. And so it was just obvious that there must be something that's causing these hospitals to just throw all medical practice out the window, at least as of to date, without regard to the individual. It was sickening.
So, wow, horribly enough, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know better than I do, but I have heard versions of that story over and over and over. So what was incentivizing the hospitals, to your knowledge? Were they being paid to diagnose people with COVID? Like, how did that actually work?
That is my understanding, that a diagnosis of COVID would give them some money. A usage of the remdesivir would give them a bonus. That is, and then dealing with deaths. And I don't remember all the numbers that were attached to it, but I know that there were incentives to go along with inflating the numbers, first of all, so they could collect this money. But also stopping treatments and using a particular treatment that was shown to be harmful. So
basically, hospitals were being incentivized to either let people die, give them suboptimal treatment, or attribute their deaths to COVID when they were actually attributable to other causes. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, that's how I see it. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I don't doubt it from what I've seen. It's just today is a day of like mind-blowing, shocking revelations. We just did a presentation on how there are different batches that the AMA is aware of, but that you and I are not, or at least I wasn't aware of, with different levels of lipid nanoparticles, different levels of spike protein, and people were being injected, you know, with different batches without any, you know, accommodation for weight or size or gender or anything. And I, you know, so now you're sharing this with me, and it's kind of the other side of a truly biofascist approach to medicine. I mean, it can't even be called medicine. It's really harvesting bodies for profit in weird ways. So when you say they were incentivized, who was doing it? Was it the Biden administration? Was it HHS? Like, who's the they?
Well, they are the people that were in charge of this whole enterprise fraud. I'll just call it enterprise fraud. That's kind of how I've heard it referred to, and that's how I see it. It was so deep and wide that it was built into what was happening at our government level. And just look at the world. We were seeing this story being played out all across the world, especially in the, you know, Australia. I mean, you can just go through and name all the countries that were tied up in this, but
it's lockstep. I understand. I'm not asking you to identify kind of the person sitting at the top of the pyramid, but just at the level of your constituents and your community, the hospitals that you know. What's the mechanism whereby doctors and hospitals were compensated or incentivized? Was it the CARES Act? Was it Medicare reimbursements? Was it, you know, what's the how?
it could have been, it very possibly was a combination of all those things. I know that in order to receive Medicare money, they have to abide by certain rules. There is just an attachment to all kinds of things for businesses, everybody, everywhere, with all this COVID money was flying around. There were stipulations to the use of that money and built-in incentives for the hospitals in that way to collect that. So
have doctors ever been incentivized personally for an outcome that is medical? I've never heard of that before. Have you?
I have not, but I don't know. Maybe Dr. Ealy would know about that one. I don't think so.
It absolutely seems to be a built-in way to corrupt medical outcomes. Well, this is very revelatory. Let's turn to Senator Linthicum. What's your view of the how, or how did you start to think about Medicare and Medicaid fraud as what was driving these shocking outcomes and this data manipulation?
Right. You know, and I think Kim put a good box around it. We are often in CMS for HHS and cash disbursements. Dr. Ealy just mentioned the $3 trillion versus the 25.3 billion that typically gets spent on a flu season.
Right.
25.3 billion during a flu season is 25,000 million. And then when you move that into the $1 trillion box, it's 3.5 trillion. We say that like it rolls off the tip of our tongue, but it's 3,500,000 million.
Wow. No.
And so
is that really true what you just said?
Yeah.
Say it again, please, Senator Linthicum. Please say that sentence again, because you're right. We just say trillion. Oh, that's much worse than billion, but I've never heard it expressed that way. Please say it again to really wrap our brains around this level of this scandal.
So 3.5 trillion is the same as 3,500,000 million. And it's an enormous number. And this is all coming out of the federal printing press.
Right.
And as you alluded to earlier, it's buying allegiance from the hospital system. Each coronavirus patient in the state of Oregon gets approximately $220,000 paid to the hospital system where that individual died. And
I'm just going to restate that so I'm sure that I heard it correctly, so everyone can hear it correctly. When a patient in Oregon dies of COVID, or it can be attributed to COVID, that hospital gets $220,000. Is this really true?
It's true. I can send you the link to the CMS data file. It's a table that shows what is spent across the states, some states less, some states more. And it's an enormous amount of money. And there's where the incentive comes from. You see allegiance from school systems because they're getting COVID money. You see allegiance from higher ed because they're getting COVID money.
I want to jump in there because you're now, so many mysteries are being resolved. I've been trying to figure out the money flow to schools. What is the money flow to schools? Where are they getting the funds from?
Well, that's part of the CARES Act. And these items that we're describing here aren't even in our grand jury petition. This is just material. In our grand jury petition says we have documentable evidence for this, that, and the other thing. And one of the issues that brought me into the conversation with Dr. Ealy was violation of simple things that were under the Paperwork Reduction Act and the Information Quality Act, where the federal government, to ensure the dissemination of accurate, timely, and usable information and data, has to publish their information or their decision-making process, allow public commentary, and they do this through the Federal Registry. That's where we really cracked the ball open the first time. Dr. Ealy's research team discovered that they had changed the filling out of the certificate of death across all 50 states by modifying some rules that did not go through public comment. Since they didn't go through public comment, they were just kind of done in an underhanded fashion. And Dr. Ealy's team started asking the question, well, gee, why are we now seeing so many COVID deaths above and beyond what would typically happen during a regular seasonal flu outbreak?
Right. Oh my goodness. So this is making so much sense to me. My mom lives in Corvallis, Oregon, and she was absolutely petrified. I told Senator Thatcher this because the Oregonian would say COVID cases up 20%. And then I would look at the numbers and it was like 9 people in, her entire county. And then I would look at the press release from Governor Brown, and they defined a COVID case as anyone presenting with a cough or a fever. So every single person in Oregon who presented with a cough or a fever was defined as a COVID case. And yet the fear was imposed on so many Oregonians. So it sounds, if I'm understanding you correctly, as if it's almost like the government gave a green light and a method to hospitals and doctors to commit fraud. In other words, medical or Medicare fraud is committed when, say, you're not sick, but I say you're sick, and then I bill for treating you for, pancreatic cancer, but you don't have pancreatic cancer. Is that correct? Is that one way that Medicare or Medicaid fraud, takes form typically?
Yeah, typically what will happen is that, you get a person being diagnosed for something, and then there's more and more that's added on to the diagnostic codes. And typically that's done to pursue a greater reimbursement because a doctor might say, well, this is what it costs me, and I know I'm only going to get 70% of that back. So I want to get as close to 70% of that back as I can, right? So that's the system. But that system is turned on its ear when on March 24th, 2020, the CDC changes death certificate reporting only for COVID and does so in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act, the Information Quality Act, the Paperwork Reduction Act. Completely goes rogue and says we are not going to go through government required transparency and open up public comment. Like, that's a major thing. But what's really shocking, Naomi, is then 2 days later, on March 26, 2020, the Health and Human Services Department authorizes incredible increases, 30 to 55% greater increases for hospitals that go along with this. So now, whereas you're always worried about getting as much money back as you can, you're getting now way more than you ever thought you could. And because they've intentionally said hospitals could only treat one thing, right? All the elective surgeries shut down, the cancer monitoring everything shut down. So what's a hospital going to do? If I want to survive, I've got to go along with this system. And this system is highly incentivized now for me to do that. And what they have in that HHS thing that's really incredible, Naomi, is that if you are uninsured, you get to now qualify, no matter what your age is, as Medicare, Medicaid. That's right in the documents that the HHS published 2 days after the CDC published theirs. So you can see that I've been around a while. We all have, right? I have never known a government to function that efficiently, to where you go one change in one department and federal agency, and this whole other federal agency 2 days later is ready to capitalize on it. That's planning. And I think what we have to do is we have to dial back a little bit here and go, when was the U.S. CARES Act first proposed? It was first proposed in January 24th of 2019.
Oh, wow. So they needed a pandemic to get it through. Right.
So that seems like preparation there to me. I mean, and now we start seeing if there's preparation, if there's planning, then this is collusion. This is at this stage treason, in my opinion. Now, this is not an allegation that we're levying here in this petition, but it's something that we have to have the courage to talk about at this time, because the fate of our country and the fate of our children and their future is really at stake if we don't hold these people who are alleged criminals to account.
Oh my gosh. Well, as I'm hearing you all, I also can hear like there are different things happening that kind of reinforce each other. I'm sure you're all familiar with Edward Dowd's revelations, the former BlackRock hedge fund manager, and his theory is fraud. Well, your documentation is fraud. You have the proof that he's looking for, it sounds like. So, which just to tease that out for those who don't know, if indeed there's been fraud, it means that a lot of people are open to not just civil but criminal charges, and it means that hospitals are open to civil and criminal charges, and drug manufacturers are as well. Is that correct, Dr. Ealy?
You know, Naomi, that would be my assessment of it, but that's where we feel like now it starts getting out of, what we're looking at, and we're simply saying to the courts, we have attempted to interact with every U.S. attorney in the country, and we did this in 2020, got nowhere. The senators stepped in 2021 and said, we are going to take this up and we are going to risk everything, our reputation and everything, to interact with the Honorable Scott Asfog, the U.S. attorney here in Oregon. And instead of Scott Asfog doing what he's supposed to do and honor our right to petition and get this to an impaneled grand jury, he elected to send it up to the Department of Justice, where they started giving Senator Thatcher and Senator Linthicum the runaround, and it was just like, okay, so we have obstruction of justice without it really being obstruction of justice, right? This nebulous kind of thing. Right. And so we said, now what's our recourse? Well, our recourse is we have to go to federal court and, ask the court for a prayer of relief here, that U.S. attorneys, when they are informed of alleged crimes, especially of this magnitude, it is their duty to get that before a judge, and for a judge to either impanel a special grand jury or to give that information to an already impaneled grand jury. This is how our legal system is supposed to function. Right. So when prosecutors are exercising prosecutorial discretion, saying, I don't really think it doesn't look like anything, this doesn't look like crimes against humanity here or anything like that, then what they're effectively doing is acting in an obstruction of justice and preventing us from exercising our right to petition, which is maintained under 18 USC 3332. Right. So what we have to do is hold people to account. But I think what our first step here is holding our judicial system to account and saying, look, it's your duty to abide by the laws that govern our land. It's not you don't get to decide when and if a petition goes before a grand jury. That's not what you're here for. You're here to enforce the law.
Right, right. Well, that brings up a question I'd like to ask you, and then I'd like to ask the senators as well. What inspired you to pursue this potential legal remedy? Why are you doing this, Dr. Ealy?
You know, the thread that that I respect most is Naomi. I was one of those people that thought that, number one, Republicans were bad, right? I'm a recovering Democrat here, right? And I'm now right. And I'm just it's it's getting bigger every moment, right? I've decided I was going to just be independent. I'm just going to be American the rest of my life, right? And I vote on issues and for people. I don't vote for parties and things like that, right? So it was very reassuring meeting Senator Thatcher and Senator Linthicum, because they've consistently been about exercising what's in the best interests of the people. And of course, freedom has got to be at the forefront of that. So they're champions of this. Yeah. For me, what I think about why am I doing this? Because I believe in a peaceful resolution. I believe that, no bullets have been fired per se for these alleged criminals to do what they've done. Then our justice system should take over here and should hold these people to account, if for no other reason, to confirm that they did nothing wrong. Right. I mean, that's another possible outcome here. But the American people, with what we've been through for the 2 years, deserve that. And we deserve to have these conversations that are very open and nonpartisan, or better yet, all partisan. Right. Everybody gets to talk about this and say, look, I care about the freedom that my son and his children are going to get. My job, my duty as an American, based upon the people that have sacrificed everything before us. My job as an American is to pass on that same freedom I was given to future generations, right? That's my job. That's my duty. And I take that duty very serious. And so do Senator Linthicum and Senator Thatcher. That's why we work together all so well, because we agree on the same things. At least that's my perspective on why am I doing this? Because I care. That's why I'm doing this.
Thank you so much. And I know that all of you have so many supporters. I believe that your grand jury petition has over 100,000 signatures. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now we're at over 125,000 signatures of people in support, and we want to get that up to 1 million now. Not that we have enough here with it being filed in federal court that signatures are kind of symbolic, but I think it's an important number to be able to share with the judge and say, hey, there's 1 million Americans out here who support us. That's what we're after with that.
Absolutely. Well, with that, let me turn now to Senator Thatcher. I'd like to ask how the data and insurance fraud impacted the citizens that you represent. And are there any stories of harm that you can share that your constituents have shared with you?
There are so many. I touched on a couple of them, but my inbox is filling up. And I count constituents as people of Oregon, really. I don't ask the question, well, where do you live? Unless it's a specific issue. But when it came to this, if they needed help with it, I was trying to be there and use that information and try to ask the hard questions of our Oregon Health Authority and the people that were making these decisions that were hard on the citizens. And so, yeah, there were just countless numbers of people who were either misdiagnosed or not able to find treatment that would actually maybe help them, because we know that the remdesivir and the ventilator method was not helping a lot of people. In fact, it was harming a lot of people that we're finding out. So there was that. And then when they came with, they amped it up by requiring people to have their vaccinations and having a vaccine passport, essentially, then a lot of people lost their jobs. And they were left, they're being forced into either being unemployed or submitting. And not only that, if they were unemployed, they were not going to qualify, likely, in most cases, for unemployment insurance to help get them through and bridge them to their next job where maybe this wouldn't be required. So there was a lot of harm done just on this whole construct that was laid out because of the fear that was amped up and brought onto people, and the incentivization, if that's a word, of all the powers that be. We had government. I was hoping that we could say, hey, this is just not constitutional what's happening. But we saw a lawsuit go through, and I think Senator Linthicum was involved with it, down in Southern Oregon, and they prevailed in court. But by the time it rolled up to the Supreme Court, and 5 of the 7 judges were appointed by the governor who was causing all this. So where do you think it's going to go? It's just good money chasing after bad, trying to pursue a legal remedy within the state of Oregon. And not only that, you had a majority of people in the legislature who were not willing to push back. I always thought, well, we have checks and balances. We have the 3 branches of government, and we don't have the 3 branches of government in here. They seem to all be in one corner together. So fighting it at a legislative level, judicial level was not going to happen. And the executive branch was causing the issue. So this grand jury petition looked like a way to get around that and maybe find some relief, though, knowing it would take some time.
And forgive my ignorance, but the one reason a grand jury is a good solution to this horrible partisanship and corruption you're describing is that a grand jury is made up of citizens, right? So that's wonderful, right? That's our founders had a lot of foresight. Well, thank you for that answer. Let me turn to Senator Linthicum, if I may, and tell us what inspired you to pursue this as a legal remedy.
Our team, not only the 3 of us who are here talking with you, but our team has long been concerned, and I had 2 lawsuits against the governor in the state of Oregon. One when they outlawed, quote unquote, congregational settings for churches. And I filed a lawsuit. My claim was that they're violating religious liberty for those churches, and they don't have the right to do that, regardless of what we might think of public health. Especially when the pot shop was essential business and the liquor store remained open for essential business and the grocery store remained open for essential business. And this essential, non-essential qualifier is a completely artificial qualifier. And from your past work in the End of America, you really honed in on the concept of a dictatorial command of government processes and how dangerous that is from a historical perspective and from what we see, regardless of whether it's Democrat, Republican, independent, anybody can be corrupted by power. Right. And so although we were complacent in somewhat, a lot of people were complacent. I don't think Kim or I ever were too complacent. But the idea to flatten the curve, give them some credit, that may be a good idea, even though it violated all of our historical knowledge of epidemiology or virology or how to manage and quarantine populations, not healthy populations, but populations who have been infected. And so this is now turning the entire bubble upside down and was just the makings of a dictatorial totalitarian rule that I thought we should step up and tackle. And then just like you, all of us have experienced, truth tellers are now banned. Truth tellers are banned from medicine, from practicing, from exercising what we typically thought was an American freedom, your right to speak. Your platform, even, Naomi, got thrown out with the bathwater, and now you're in an entirely different world. And keep up the good work, because we need to get around or conquer these guys who are keen on stifling every bit of truth that we can present.
Yeah, well put. And this is a bit of a. I'm kind of shy to even ask this question, but, do you feel it's the implicit duty of elected and appointed officials to tell the truth?
Oh, absolutely. Look at, we have taken the concept of licensure for public health and safety off the table. And now what we have is licensure if you'll follow the rules that we set forth. And those rules don't have to be science-based. They don't have to be fact-based. They have to be ideological rules. And this is really the undoing of the American Republic. To think that doctors have been slandered or persecuted, or even the former president, to think that he's no longer allowed on these platforms is just like this is unworldly in the modern era. And researchers have been canceled, and the entire concept of letting truth, you probably may know this, John Milton in Paradise Lost says, truth will always win the battle if truth is allowed onto the battlefield. But what if we keep truth off of the battlefield? Now who wins? And the answer, in our rhetorical minds is obvious. The forces of this malicious and malevolent enterprise win, taking our tax dollars with every paycheck.
Unbelievable. So so very moving, all of you. Let's circle back to kind of the nuts and bolts of the grand jury petition. What allegations are actually made in the grand jury petition? And please, anyone chime in and answer that question.
I can read directly from it. I mean, it's a huge document. We do want everyone to, of course, read the document. But we've I think done a really good job at the beginning of putting some summaries in there, because we understand for the courts and for grand jury members that might be a bit much, right? So I'm going to read just a little bit from here on some of the codes that we are saying. First of all, we are specifically naming former CDC Director Robert Redfield, current CDC Director Rochelle Walensky. We are naming Alex Azar, former Secretary for the Health and Human Services Department, and Xavier Becerra, current Secretary for HHS, and Brian Moyer, who's been there through pretty much all of it with the National Vital Statistics System, which is housed under the National Center for Health Statistics. So we have those 5 named, Naomi, but what's interesting is a grand jury doesn't have to restrict their investigation to those 5 people. They can take it really wherever they want to, within the bounds of what with the scope that they're impaneled to do. So when we looked at the facts, the violation of federal laws were pretty obvious. The Administrative Procedures Act.
Let me jump in. What
Yeah.
laws were violated? I mean, you've explained that the data handling was
Right.
and that was unlawful, but what other laws, what kinds of crimes are we looking at here?
Right. So when we get to criminal acts and willful misconduct, what that takes us to is a different section of the U.S. Code. So this is what we're alleging here. We're alleging that there is probable cause to believe that the violations of the Administrative Procedures Act, Paperwork Production Act, and Information Quality Act subsequently led to violations of the following federal laws by the defendants. I'm reading from page 14 of the petition. Major fraud against the United States, fraud in connection with major disasters or emergency benefits, conspiracy to defraud the United States,
Wow.
false statements related to healthcare matters, false statements, false information and hoaxes, and also the potential for domestic terrorism, malfeasance, conspiracy against rights, and deprivation of rights under the color of the law.
Wow. I mean, in no way do any of those seem excessive to me, but when you put it in a legal context, the criminality of this scale is it's helpful to have it in black and white that these are massive crimes against the United States, allegedly, that and then to itemize the crimes. Say that you're successful and all of these people whom you've named are found guilty by a grand jury made up of members of the public of some or all of the crimes that you've identified as having been possibly committed. What happens then? Do they go to jail? Are they fined? I mean, what's the process?
Well, the process as we understand it, and we're in a constant state of educating ourselves on this as well. We're basically clearing the cobwebs and the dust off of this system, right? So to get it working again for all people in this country. what we see is that a grand jury, once impaneled, would then have incredible authority, to subpoena testimony, to subpoena records, to get access to things that we've been trying to get access to for years now on this. And this is why they haven't wanted us to get into discovery on these other, legal arguments.
Right. Could you explain what discovery is?
Discovery is going to be where they say, the defendants and the plaintiffs have the right to access information from each other. It's basically, so that you can craft your arguments and things like that. You can't slip something in that you've been holding on the sidelines at the 11th hour into a court hearing. So you want to go through a process called discovery. Well, the grand jury would be able to do that on steroids, right? They'd be able to get into discovery, get into every nook and cranny that they wanted to. And if they found that there was substance to the allegations as we've presented them, or even beyond, right? Because they can go beyond as well, that they can issue what's called a true bill and indictments. Now, indictments doesn't mean that someone's guilty, but it does mean that they have to face the music. And that would then put them in a courtroom, in this case, a federal courtroom, trial by jury, as we understand it, where they would be given the opportunity. We have to take the opinion that all these defendants are innocent until proven guilty, right? If we believe in our legal system. So they deserve their day in court. They deserve their day to defend themselves, and they deserve their opportunity to exonerate themselves from the allegations. So if they're able to exonerate themselves, fantastic. I don't see how they would be with what we found. But if they aren't, then at that point, it would be a judge would then pass a sentence against them. A jury would pass a sentence, and a judge would issue out what the length of that sentence would be.
Wow. Okay. And how long a process is that? I mean, you're back. It's my understanding that your filing was accepted not long ago. Is that correct? By a court?
Yeah, the filing was officially accepted in the Ninth Circuit Court on March 7th of this year of 2022. It is now before the court. We have confirmation that it is on the docket. We do have to process serve the defendants to give them their notification, right, under the law. So we're really looking forward to that as well.
I should not let myself get excited at the prospect of that, but that's very real. So the next step is Rochelle Walensky.
Yes.
All of these people that you've identified receive a process server showing up and saying you've been served with these papers, and they have to respond. Presumably they can't ignore it. Yeah,
my understanding is that we will be the first people to serve these folks on these issues, and I can assure you that we won't be the last.
Well, that raises an important question, and this is again to any of the distinguished heroes and heroines seated before me. Does your possible success setting down a precedent of serving these people and possibly getting them indicted by a grand jury help other people? I know that there's a lot of activity, of course, all of a sudden with other lawsuits, other movements. My own group is convening lawyers. I understand that David Martin has just filed a lawsuit. Of course, you all led the way long ago, and I really want to credit you for that. But does it help everyone else who's going to follow after if you are successful?
Well, I'll jump in here, and I'll just speak to the fact that that synergy that we've had as a team working on this grand jury petition exists among all the people all across the nation, taking steps, legal actions, whatever, that help destruct this fake foundation upon which everything was built upon that has hurt our country and hurt people in our country. Right.
So I don't just mean, will you help them? I mean, as a precedent legally, does it help them? Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer, so I would just imagine it would. So I'll just say, I would imagine that precedent would help, you know, in all these ways. But like I said, I am not a lawyer. I just play with the law in the legislature. So there.
Senator Linthicum, do you have any thoughts about how it might affect other lawsuits if you all are successful, or other criminal charges being filed?
Right. Well, I agree with the take that you guys, walked through. with common sense, we see as soon as we can see the tip of the spear pierce the armor of these public health organizations that are in collusion, have made decisions to avoid following federal law and by avoiding following federal law, they're purposely violating federal law. Right. And as soon as we can penetrate that, oh, we're just doing our best concept, that these individuals working within the bureaucratic machinery have long, said, oh, I'm a public servant. I'm a public servant. Oh, I'm a public servant. Well, that really only goes so far. The number of individuals who have lost their jobs, who have had their Main Street businesses destroyed. Remember, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and now we're 2.5 years later, still arm wrestling with the phalanx of rules and regulations and laws and OSHA, the health and safety, organizations for occupational health and safety. All facets of this lead back to the same place. And that's why our lawsuit is going at the top of the HHS ladder and trying to make certain that everyone rightfully understands these guys are responsible for creating this mess that we have in our economy and across the globe.
Right, absolutely. Well, let me turn back to Senator Thatcher. I'd love to know, Senator Thatcher, I don't know if you saw the clips of Rochelle Walensky at the University of Washington basically saying, I didn't tell anyone to do anything. It was just guidance. It's like people going to Shake Shack and saying, should I have the fries? She literally said that. And recently also CEO Bourla of Pfizer gave an interview with the Washington Post in which he sort of, again, it's the I don't know what you're talking about, why not me? He said, well, they came to us and said, this mRNA technology was effective. I know you guys aren't exactly focused on this technology, but it was definitely it wasn't me. They told me it would work. They told me it was a good idea, even though we have never put a product based on it into production, he said. So I guess my question to you, Senator Thatcher, is how does it feel to see all this backpedaling going on, notably by at least one person that you've named as a potential defendant, that's Rochelle Walensky. And do you think that your action is having an effect? Do you think she's being advised by her lawyer, look, put some distance between yourself and these actions?
I would like to think that our petition has helped sway some people to step back a little bit from their insistence upon everything just being so perfectly put in place for us for our own good, right? But I think, like I said before, that the many legal actions that are taking place all over the world, all over the United States, I think that altogether is having an effect. Okay. I fully expect everybody's going to be going, well, they did it. And they did it. No, they told us this was good. So I fully expect there's going to be a not me, it was these guys, and they're going to be doing the same thing. It will be the whole all the way down. No doubt.
Which I gather is pretty satisfying to prosecutors, right? Because the early people to turn on everyone else get their deals done, and then it collapses like a house of cards, I've been told by people who are more familiar with this kind of process than I am. Well, I'm really excited to hear you probably know a lot more than I do about other actions. So it definitely sounds like you all have sparked a wave that's unfolding not just in this country, but around the world. What's the timeline? How soon do we get to hear back? I may have asked a version of that question, but I'm not sure if I got the answer. I'll turn to Dr. Ealy for that one.
Timeline is once the defendants get served, Judge Hernandez, Honorable Judge Hernandez is required to rule on this within 90 days. And, we're not.
No.
Right. And we're not asking anything, any discretion of the court. We're just asking them to, here's the information, here's our right to petition, honor our right to petition, get this information to an impaneled grand jury, or even better, impanel a special grand jury that's looking exclusively at this issue. I think what's so important for the audience right here, Naomi, is I want to read some stats here, because our work has been substantiated now and been proven accurate. In January of 22, the New York State Department of Health confirmed that 4,966 people who were hospitalized diagnosed with COVID were not there for COVID. That's 4,966 instances of insurance fraud right there.
Wow.
In New Jersey Department did the same kind of thing in January. 3,112 instances of insurance fraud confirmed. Massachusetts did the same thing in January. 1,563 instances of insurance fraud confirmed. And then Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Department of Health just a couple of days ago did the same thing and confirmed that there were 4,081. I know they're saying 3,700 is their corrected number, but it's 4,081 confirmed instances of fraud. So,
Wow.
that's been our allegation since we first really unearthed this and got it peer reviewed in October of 2020. And we're seeing ourselves being validated by the actual public health departments. But what they're trying to do is say it's a miscount or a whoopsie. No, there's not a whoopsie, not when there's been billions and billions and billions of dollars transferred from the American people through the Medicare, Medicaid tax insurance payments, reimbursement system. That's not a whoopsie.
No,
That's
indeed.
fraud.
It's fraud, especially as you're showing a pattern. So I guess my last question, or second to last question, is I imagine the insurance companies would actually be supportive of what you're doing or wanting you to be successful. Is that correct?
You would think. You would think, but who knows? The bedfellows these days are strange and they change frequently, but you would think.
True. Just conjecture. Well, let me go.
I think, let me add into that. You asked a question about the insurance companies, and we don't really know what's going on after disbursements are made. What we do know is that the bureaucratic agencies of the federal government have been in cahoots in this entire system. And because one of the very first things that Dr. Ealy brought to our attention was the Information Quality Act, which is an obligation for the government to present data in a balanced manner.
Right.
First of all, so that the public can use it, can understand it, recognizes the nuances, the pros and the cons, and they can therefore comment on public policy like waters of the US, or smog and pollution, or forestry policies here in the rural parts of Eastern Oregon. All of these things are meant for the government. If it's going to collect data, it has to therefore balance that information with what it disseminates so that the public gets an accurate understanding of what's going on.
Right.
And we have been on this steamroller of government policy and mandates and requirements and on, where the government makes a statement and it's, the Holy Grail, it's God's truth. It's You cannot question it. And if you do, you're a domestic terrorist. And this is really, really running deep under the covers. And that's why this petition is so important. We're making allegations, but it's up to the grand jury to provide indictments to those individuals and figure out how much malfeasance has actually been committed and how much the public has been gypped out of their due process and rights.
Right, I understand. Wow. Well, I know hundreds and hopefully thousands of people who are watching this will want to help you. Many of them will want to help you. So let me go to each of you for a final thoughts. I mean, you've just been, as you say, the tip of the spear. I mean, you've been so far out front, so tireless. I've been watching for a long time, and each of you has been so tireless in serving your constituents, serving your country, serving the truth. So final thoughts on what you want people to take away and how they can help you. Let's start with Senator Linthicum.
The first thing that we have earlier, we had a conversation about getting signatures and whatnot. Stand for Health Freedom has a grand jury page on their website. You can see it on the main menu. And I recommend everybody go there and sign up, one, so they'll be familiar with what's going on. They can read frequently asked questions that people pose to us. They can read the petition itself, which is 62, 65 pages, somewhere in there. And then start in the early morning and you'll be sleepy by midnight. But there's a lot of information, a lot of data. Some of it's bewildering, and but you'll find most of it extremely useful because we lay it out in a very simple format, and the public has to become aware of how much freedom they have lost to the administrative state and how important it is for each of us to fight for each other in our pursuit of liberty and freedom here in the United States, whether it's from the administrative state at the governor's level or the federal level or the local sheriff. That same crushing authority can happen on all of us. And it's important for us to understand the balance and know how to respond. So go to standforhealthfreedom.com.
Okay, fantastic. Wonderful words. And what about you, Senator Thatcher? What are your parting thoughts and how can we help?
Thank you. I would have mentioned Stand for Health Freedom as well. And not only that, sign it yourself, pass it on to 10 others and have them pass it on to 10 others. That will help build momentum. We'll get those 1 million signatures in a short time. Also, I am the only senator here on this call that is running for, I would say, re-election, but it's actually election in a new district, a completely new district other than where my house is. So if you see fit to help me out there, that'd be awesome. KimThatcher.com is the site. Regardless of the outcome of the election, I'm going to continue to fight this. So just know that.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Senator Thatcher. And how about you, Dr. Ealy?
Well, I'd say, first of all, I want to give big gratitude to everybody who supported us to this point as well, because this has been a yeoman's level of work, and so many awesome men and women have just stepped up and are doing this, and most of it, almost all of it, is on a volunteer basis. So we're just overwhelmed with gratitude for everyone. We are super proud to be in a partnership with Stand for Health Freedom, Leah Wilson and Sarah G, and the wonderful work they're doing. I think they're doing a great job of also announcing and endorsing candidates around the country. Like, we got to get people like Senator Linthicum and Senator Thatcher who care elected. So that's a very real thing. Please support Senator Thatcher and her campaign. For me, when I look at this, what we've done is we've put together a grand jury page on covidcon21.com. So you can go to covidcon21.com, go to the grand jury page, and there are links that'll take you to Stand for Health Freedom. So you don't have to go and search around for it there. It'll take you right to it if you want to support and sign. But I think what's most important right here, Naomi, is to, number one, read the petition. So know what you're supporting. And number two, we have a free download of the petition, of frequently asked questions about the grand jury system. Get yourself educated on the grand jury system. It's amazing. We just have to learn how to access it and use it at our discretion again. And then we also put on that same page, Naomi, on covidcon21.com, an opportunity for people to check out the first exhibit, which is, I think we answer over 40 questions that are common for COVID, with screenshots and links and citations and everything. Because it's like, look, we're not making up anything that we're saying. Everything we say, we can substantiate. So we're very confident in what we say. But it also gives people on covidcon21.com an opportunity to donate. This is going to take money. I mean, we've spent, personally for me, I've spent well over $50,000 of my own money on this, which, and I'm happy to do it. I'll do that again and again and again for freedom. But what we are looking forward to, Naomi, is obstruction, additional attempts to obstruct. Like, we are sure that the defendants will hire counsel, and the counsel will try to extend the case, and maybe the judge, we don't get a favorable ruling, we have to now hire an attorney to appeal it. There's costs that go with freedom. The price of freedom is very high. So any donation that people can support us with, we really appreciate as well, because every single penny goes back to this fight. None of it goes to any of us. None of it goes into any of our wallets, or anything like that. I don't have a vacation home in Aspen or anything like that. I'm here to fight and fight for what's right and fight for every person who has goodness in their heart. And thankfully, there's millions of us out there. We just have to stay together and get this done. I mean, this is the work before us. We've been called into service by God, and that's what we're going to do, is we're going to do the work until we get this done.
Well, thank God for all of you. And I just want to reiterate, I can't say it enough. These battles cost money. These people are up against heavily funded, deep-pocketed, vested interests. And if you want, people complain about their public servants all the time. Here are some good public servants. You can help them get elected. And people don't have to be in Oregon to help you get elected. Is that correct, Senator Thatcher, Senator Linthicum? They can
not so far.
Okay.
That might be a thing in the future, but not so far.
Okay. So wherever you are, no matter where you are in the world, you can help these people have influence, have impact, not just locally, but nationally and internationally. And the same thing with Dr. Ealy's amazing organization and with their larger kind of aegis organization, Stand for Health Freedom. So, support them. And I just want to thank you from my heart. You guys have inspired me. Every day you inspire me. Even knowing you're out there inspires me. So it's a big fight, but we've got very, very talented heroes and heroines like you fighting it. Thank you all so much. Thanks for joining us. And good luck.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Naomi, thank you for everything you're doing. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I am asking you to please, if you like the video you just saw, support us, become a member, donate. You can send checks to P.O. Box 24, Millerton, New York, 12546, or go to Daily Clout, DAILYCLOUT, become a member or donate. Thank you so much for your support. Every penny goes for paying our hardworking staff, paying hosting costs, and paying our lawyers who have been leading the fight to keep you safe and free, to keep the Constitution safe and to keep you free. Thank you so much.